Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carrie Vitucci, and I will serve as the moderator for today's webinar. On behalf of N4A and its leadership, thank you for joining today's session, which serves as another installment of N4A's spring webinar series. Today's session is titled, Pivoting Student-Athlete Leadership in Creative Ways. We are pleased to have with us today Katie Smith from Marquette University and Brian Townsend from the University of Michigan. At the conclusion of today's webinar, I will moderate a brief question and answer session. If you have questions throughout the course of the live webinar, feel free to use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen as we're in a meeting. At this time, I would like to pass things off to our presenters so they can kick off today's presentation. Katie and Brian, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Carrie. We really appreciate you having us in, and just want to say thanks so much for everyone joining us today. My name is Brian Townsend. I'm Director of Leadership Development at the University of Michigan.
And I'm Katie Simmet. I'm Assistant Director of Academic Services and Student Programs at Marquette University.
All right.
Today, we're going to talk to you a little bit about what some of our shared challenges are. Obviously, we have all had to pivot in great ways from a student development space and leadership development as we move to online and managed many different formats this year. Brian and I are going to share some of the programs that we've done and some of the ways that we've managed that shift. We're also going to talk a little bit about where we might be going in the future and what of these might sustain in the future. And then we're going to do an each one, teach one, where we're going to share some ideas with those of us on here, because we know we're not the experts, but all of you out there share with this expertise and what we're doing on our campuses. To get things started, we are going to do something called Jamboard. So I'm going to paste a link in here, and I'm going to ask you all to share what one of your challenges has been this year with your leadership programming, your leadership development, and engaging your student athletes. So if you click on the link, and then there will be a little post-it or an add button on the right that you should be able to post and share your thoughts. So click on the link in the chat. There you go.
So then you can just type in what have been your biggest challenges, and then they'll show up here.
Sorry.
Ah, people are joining now. Okay. Again, so we're sharing, actually Katie shared this with me the other day, and we had a meeting and we used it here at the University of Michigan because I didn't know about Jamboard. So this is a new tool for me to use and for us here at the University of Michigan.
All right, great technology moment. So when you do have Google Drive, you have to set it up that you have a link that everyone should share. So that second one should work. So there you go. Now everyone should be able to do it because it's not a closed link. You don't need Gmail. You don't need Google to be able to do it. Thanks, Liz, for updating us.
What have been some of the biggest challenges in leadership development for you this year? I know if I was writing something right now, I would definitely be writing about not being in the same room and be able to read their face, be able to read their body language, and being able to play off of what people are saying in the room. All right, let's see. All right. Well, it looks like Says view only, someone said. All right, so you know what we're gonna do? I think what we'll do is we will pivot, right? This is again about pivoting. We need edit access, it says. All right, so when we do this, why don't we have you, we're gonna pivot and we'll go back to this because we're gonna come back to it and we'll fix all that for you. We're gonna pivot and go back to right now, if you would. Go ahead and drop in, just in the chat, what have been some of the biggest challenges for you? So in the chat, we'll just go through the chat right now. What have been some of the biggest challenges for you? And then we'll come back to this later on. Engagement, right? No, I definitely understand that, right? Right? Zoom fatigue, for sure, right? Student athletes are done with Zoom, right? Students being overwhelmed, right? Motivation, right? Then again, like you said, just determine your leadership style, right? And then not being able to meet with the incoming freshmen is so true, right? So like that's definitely tough. And then building new relationships, right? So you got a lot of different things there because it's interesting because I read Harvard Business Review and they talk about how hard it is now to build relationships when you're not able to just bump into people and meet student athletes, right? Student athletes dealing with quarantine, right? So we got a lot of good things there that have been popping up. And so we'll go back to it, and we'll come back to the Jamboard in a little bit. Okay. All right. So again, so here at Michigan last year, when they shut us down, or they shut down everything, and for us it was March 14th. It was like boom. Like if we were in a car and somebody slammed on the brake, like if you were sitting in the back seat, you would fit comfortably how hard we stopped that car and hit those brakes. You would fit comfortably in the glove compartment because it was just like everything came forward, right? And so for 2 to 3 weeks, we wanted to have empathy, give our student athletes time to deal with the sudden loss of their season. No one knew what was going to happen. Everyone was in this area of like, what's next and how are we going to go forward? And so we reached out to our student athletes after 2 to 3 weeks and asked them, okay, so how do we thrive in this time and how do we grow? And we got some feedback from them of different things. And we started to hear like kids wanted to learn and grow in the area of financial literacy, or, kids really wanted to continue to do work around community engagement. And so we sat there and I worked with Colette Hemker. Like, I tell you what, like her and I, like the dynamic duo here at Michigan, putting things together. And, we do leadership development and we see, community engagement as part of leadership, right? So we work together in what we do. And we came up with a calendar of trying to be creative, but also meeting the needs of our student athletes. And so the first thing was on Monday, we would do what's called Money Mondays. And we work with a partner who is called Prosper Labs. Great guy that runs it and owns it. It's financial literacy for the 99%. And it's a great, they have a platform where your kids can go in and slowly but surely learn about financial literacy. We also had growth shops where we partnered with RISE, which is the Ross Initiative in Sports. And they are there to really, combat racism, right? And we worked with them. We brought in also Sam Walker. And so we don't believe in what's called workshops. We believe in what's called growth shops. When you come together, we want you to grow and learn. And so we have those going on. And then on Tuesdays, we just leveraged, again, our social media. And what we did, we had Tuesday Talks. And Tuesday Talks were really about, it could be a podcast or something we thought was good for them, or it could be a TED Talk or a talk from the university. And we would just leverage our social media because we knew kids were sitting around and like kind of going through their own social medias And so we were trying to provide a learning opportunity for them. And Colette did an incredible job with community engagement. We had Reading with Wolverines on Wednesdays, and our student athletes, this is a way for them to be creative in the sense of, reading books we knew that the kids were home, right? And everyone left from the schools, they're home. And so our student athletes kind of like did an Instagram takeover and read books that we were able to get digitally for them to use, or they had their own books to kids. And we had different times and people checked in and watched it. And then on Thursdays, we did Thank You Thursdays. And it was a way for us, everyone on the front line, people with University of Michigan Hospital doing this great work and dealing with all these different cases. We were able to send emails and cards to them. And so leverage, again, our kids being at home, but how do we engage in the community? And then the other thing at the bottom, it says the Mott Tube. So we have, we have Mott Children's Hospital. And with Mott Children's Hospital, our student athletes were able to, they normally every Thursday's tradition, going back 25 years, that we go up, our kids go up and meet with those kids at the hospital. So our student athletes started putting videos together, and we would send them to the hospital, and they played them on the floor for all the kids that were in the hospital, right? Trying to be creative there and find a way for our kids to really help and feel like they're giving to the kids that were there at Mott Children's Hospital. And then the last thing, and again, Colette was really instrumental in doing this, thank goodness it's Fun Fitness Friday. Again, our student athletes, different teams got together and put together half-an-hour workouts that were full, just your body, and did different things. And so now people could watch, kids could watch, because we knew fitness was important, and do different things and follow our student athletes. So it was really positive for anyone that they wanted to do. We felt like there was something in here for everyone that you could, would want to do, right? And we weren't able to get 100% participation, but we were able to get a large participation with that. So along with providing this for all of our student athletes, we still had coaches coming to us and saying, how do you work with our teams right now so that we can grow and develop and still have those connections and build relationships and grow our leadership for ourselves and also for the culture? And the work that we do with that is when we have team meetings, we just try to make sure that they're epic, right? Dr. Tim Elmore out of Growing Leaders, put this in front of me, and we've been using it. It's like, how do we, if we're going to be in Zoom, and Zoom was new to us, right? And so we wanted them to be experiential, people participating, image rich, because we know that the number one thing that they look at all the time is images, and we wanted them to connect. And so we have these team meetings, and again, it's just largely online. So we were learning at the same time while we were doing this. And as we had these team meetings, we started doing things a little bit the same as we would do when we come in the room. We're trying to switch things up and do things. But what we learned in time was, and this is, I think, is where we flipped the classroom. And what we started doing then was we started being able to send the video out on a PowerPoint for the kids a week before. We did this with our men's basketball team. And then they would, we would send a Google form, and then they fill out the Google form, and our hockey team, and work on our volleyball team. And that made it so when they came into the room, there was a lot of epic moments, because now we were able to take that information, pull out the themes, and with us pulling out the themes, they were able to have rich conversations and really grow and get to know one another as we went through that. So that was something that was as a part of growing from our COVID experience. And even with that, we then started meeting more one-on-one with student athletes, because we knew they were zoomed out. But if you sign up for something that's about you growing your leadership, we could go through our 29 teams and pick certain kids that wanted to grow and develop. And so we started doing more one-on-one meetings. We have more one-on-one meetings this year by right now, as I look at the numbers, by about 75% than we did the year before. And it's just because we're doing more work where kids are, doing the one-on-ones, because they don't want to do Zoom, but they'll do Zoom if it's about them, right? And then the last thing is we've been also, again, with the community engagement, Colette did an incredible job this year with March Reading Month. And if you get a chance, again, reach out to me and I'll share this. But she put all these different books. We worked with a Michigan alum. We got a book that we put together, and she did it on a PowerPoint. So kids could go in and have the PowerPoint like this and read to classrooms. We covered, probably over like 125 classrooms, different schools, 25, 30 different schools. But our teachers throughout the county and throughout the school district around us were taking advantage of it. And our student athletes, they would do it and they would just feel energized with everything. So it was a really positive experience. And Colette did an incredible job with that. But again, we see leadership as we see community engagement as a part of serving within the community and leading within the community. Just as we know, research shows, or through NACE, 41% of employers see, if you do enough community engagement, they see that as, in a sense, a job, or it's an experience that you can talk about because you're learning from it. So that's what we've been doing over the last year at the University of Michigan. And I'm looking forward, as we move down further with this, learning more from other people and what they've been doing. And I'm turning it over now to my partner in crime here, Katie.
So this year, Marquette had the first pivot was with our timing. So we have typically done our leadership programming and most of our student development programming every Wednesday night over 6 weeks, or once a month for the whole semester. With our winter break being 6 weeks long, we decided to load up all of our programming over break. So the week before students were back on campus, we did a lot of programming, and it was Monday through Friday at 1 o'clock because our students had so much time at home. So I think our first pivot was about how timing changed, and some of that is going to stick because we were able to build better relationships. Our students were more engaged in the program because it was ongoing for consecutive days. And students really responded well to the relationships they were able to build. Our freshman class didn't really get to know each other on all of our campuses because there was so much of their time was spent apart. So this was the first time some of our freshman students had even met a freshman on another sport. The second thing we pivoted with is we have had student facilitators in the past, but this program was 100% student led. So from our leadership development, we have a leadership program for each year in school, and students who had participated the previous year were the facilitators. This was widely received. The students were super invested in it. They came up with the most creative icebreakers to begin every session with. I said that was the most important thing they would do so that each class could get to know each other just a little bit better. And then they brought their own experiences and put their own twist on it. So that was one of our biggest changes and will be here to stay. The third thing, we were able to use the fact that students were at home to have a creative theme for the night. So wear a high school t-shirt, or wear something from your home state, or dress crazy hat day, whatever it was. And students were willing to get a little bit more creative because you were trying to make your Zoom box just a little bit more entertaining for your peers and the facilitators in general. So our students got creative with the themes, and it made each session a little bit more fun. Our leadership programming has been largely about hands-on engagement. So if you've done some of the stuff at a ropes course, like crossing the river, those type of activities are what we use largely in our group programming. It was a huge roadblock to me to go, how do I take all that hands-on learning and bring it to the group? So we were able to find a virtual escape room online that the students did. It was free. If you've ever done the farmer activity where they have to figure out like a puzzle about who lives in what house and drives what car, they were able to do that online in small groups. So much of what we are able to do in person, I was able to pivot to find a way to do online, and the students rave about those experiences. We use DISC with our juniors, and the experiential learning piece is essential to that. Then we had senior roundtables. So our senior leadership programming, they just had heavy hearts and wanted to talk more about their experiences and how to lead the younger underclassmen and how to handle transition and how to be good role models. And so much of theirs was led by seniors and was posing really big questions that seniors were facing, some athletic, some personal. And then we invited guest speakers that, as we all know, it's challenging to ask an athletic director to come back to campus at 7, 8 o'clock at night. But if I said, hey, can you jump on a Zoom call tonight at 8 o'clock? Everyone was more than willing to help and be a speaker. And that took the voice off of, we were able to engage new experts. It wasn't just me, it wasn't just the students, it was people within our department that maybe students don't usually get to hear from. And then lastly, the DISC program. Both University of Michigan and Marquette, we both use both athlete assessment and the NCAA program for DISC. So those of you who haven't done it, the NCAA pivoted their whole DISC model to be online. And I did speak with Eileen today to make sure that if I promoted it, you can still sign up. And they found really great experiences for students that have some familiarity with each other. So whether that's a team or a leadership group or your SAC organization, what I found unique about this year's results from the NCAA is it includes the values session, which for me was, okay, you got your values back. We got to unpack that in a whole nother lesson. So you talk about free resources. Those of us at the Division I level, the DISC has been more difficult to obtain, but this year the NCAA opened it up to all levels. They provide a facilitator. It's about a 2-hour presentation, individual results. I see some DISC questions we can follow up, but thanks Leslie for helping out. But it's a really great personal results about leadership, and it was a great free resource, and I thought they pivoted really well to the online platform for this year. I also want to take a minute to talk about how leadership has been part of our, we've engaged it with our DEI efforts and how we're going to absorb DEI for the future. So we have a group of students that have really taken this on as their cause. And I think of a good friend, Leslie at Duke once said to me, go with the goers. And sometimes we have these groups of students that haven't been engaged in leadership programming, but now they're super engaged in our social justice efforts. So we have a group of students like that. We created a position on our SAC that is the VP of Diversity and Inclusion, Equity and Inclusion, and they have an entire subcommittee. They have successfully put on a program once to twice a month all year, whether that was a faculty member, an outside speaker, someone in our athletic staff speaking about their own personal experiences and continuing to move the needle in that space. I also then absorbed it into all of our leadership programming. So if we are creating great leaders, we also have to be having these conversations about creating a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment. And so I want my freshmen to talk about it in a way that maybe we just start to acknowledge differences, and my seniors are unpacking it in a way of what does this look like in the workplace. So really adding in intentional programming, but recognizing that DEI and leadership go hand in hand.
Yes, and so same thing at the University of Michigan. We pivoted with the student-led initiatives. We have a group student-led initiative with Wolverines Against Racism. So that's WAR. And they have monthly awareness and strategies on how to combat racism. And so they've also put together our Martin Luther King programming this year. So they've done a great job of providing those events. And then on top of that, we have reps from WAR that have been added to our SAC, and so they're there each day, or make sure that there's representation at different events, and making sure that everyone understands, like before, because sometimes in certain schools you can have SAC where you don't have representation, you don't have that, and so now with our SAC reps, they've been able to help with that, but also again bring awareness for different programming so that everyone within the body, student body, in the sense of student athletes, knows about the programming that's going on. All right, so now we're to this point of, we've shared how we've pivoted and how we've grown, and both as facilitators, like, we didn't want this to be a webinar where we come in and we just say, this is what we've done and you can learn from us. If you come into this room, into this area, we want it to be where it's each one teach one. And so we want to have the opportunity for us to jump into breakout rooms and have conversations about, what were some of your best practices and how you have pivoted. And I'm going to turn it over now to Katie to talk about how we're going to share, and we're in a new place now with the Jamboard.
We're going to give the Jamboards one more try. So You can have up to 100 people looking at it, but only 50 people can be editing at a time. So you're going to be put in a breakout room. If you're in breakout room 1, you're on slide 1. If you're in breakout room 2, you're on slide 2. If you could have just one person be your note taker and add on all the notes, it will create a great resource at the end of today's presentation so that everybody can have everything we shared. So when you go into your breakout room, if you're in group 1, you should be on slide 1, etc., and go into it. We're going to have 8 breakout rooms, and I'm going to paste the link right here. And there we go. We can send people on their way. We're going to give you about 10 to 15 minutes with your breakout room.
Hey, Brian, you can join the breakout room too.
Okay. All right.
At the bottom. Yeah, at the bottom right, you should see either the breakout rooms or you see 3 dots and it says more.
Bottom right. Yeah, because I thought I would have. Oh, yeah, breakout room. Tripping.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're in room 6.
6. Yep. I'm gonna jump in.
But there's only, hey, come back out if there's only 4 people and I can put y'all in other rooms.